Hey, pals, if you're watching this and you enjoy it, click like and comment. It really helps out with the algorithm. Thank you.
I'm afraid we're about to lose another one to the Why I Left the Left. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks is just released a Substack called Unaligned. Independent and unaligned. You're right. I've changed. It's a very short read, but we got to look at it. After Trump came onto the political scene, and especially after he was elected in 2016, the us versus them mentality immediately took shape. Anyone who refused to, quote, resist Trump was seen as a threat to the country, and I was fully on board with that mindset. It all felt righteous at first, but eventually the tactics deployed to fight Trump became repetitive, boring, and ultimately fruitless. Polling shows that he has increased his support among Black and Latino voters despite wall-to-wall coverage on his unsavory, racist, or bigoted remarks. Several years of media raising alarm over Trump's threat to democracy has only resulted in a tight presidential race between himself and Kamala Harris. Oh, discover more? No, thank you. I can't help but acknowledge that the only thing this accomplished by resisting Trump was less understanding and more division among Americans.
Also beating Trump.
Right. Well, yeah, sure. You're right. In multiple elections, I mean, him in 2020, but his Republican Party in virtually every election cycle.
By the way, can you just pause over there? Like, all she's describing right now is that the tactics, like, were in her mind ineffective in terms of stopping him. She's not denying the truth or falsity of the claims about Trump. She's saying it's boring, it's repetitive, it doesn't work to do X. So far, snoozer.
Right. I can't help but acknowledge that the only thing that was accomplished by resisting Trump was less understanding and more division among Americans.
Jesus Christ.
I personally became reluctant to challenge my side or engage with voters who disagreed with me. In turn, I became less knowledgeable about the people.
That's on you, Anna. That's on you.
That's a you
if you have a problem connecting with the rest of the world, we criticize MAGA all the time. We engage with MAGA. We try to seek out MAGA people. If you are finding trouble criticizing your own side, that's on you. Don't put that shit on us and say that everyone who's resisting Trump is a futile, because you certainly don't seem to have been in the trenches. You weren't on all the litigations that were fighting against Trump and having substantive results. For example, fighting his attempts to suspend a temporary protected status, fighting his attempts to put up the Muslim ban, all that stuff. That was Democrats. And the fact that you are not seeing the fruits of your bullshit doesn't mean that, by and large, the efforts to resist Trump have been ineffective. That's a bullshit statement.
My evolution started in 2022 when I was sexually assaulted by a homeless man in my neighborhood as I was walking my dog. That horrible experience alone didn't change me politically, but the treatment I received from the far left and some progressives after sharing the story did. Now, I'm not familiar with this, so somebody more familiar with the TYT lore can interrupt at any time. I was told that by publicly sharing what had happened to me, I was stigmatizing my, quote, unhoused neighbors, end quote. Others accused me of feeding into racist tropes because they assumed my attacker was Black, but I'd never disclosed the man's race. He was white.
Who the cares? Can I just say, there are idiots on the left who will say like that. Ignore them. That should not be a source for your political reawakening. Some awful shit that happened to you and some idiots, because guess what? You surround yourself with leftist idiots who will say stupid identity politics shit like that. No. There's going to be some asshole who's going to say something like that. It should not be a source of political reawakening if you have any intellectual bona fides or morals or like a structure of thought that supports what you say. That the fact that I don't know, imagine that you had a very personal experience where something like a tragic happened to you, and all of a sudden it made you a Republican. Where can you, if all it takes to make you this kind of pseudo right-wing person is a bad thing happen to you? I mean, how well thought out were your narratives in the first place?
Yeah, not only did I suddenly see the flawed thinking of some on the left, I also witnessed their cruelty and hypocrisy in real time. These terrible traits that I'd associated solely with my political opponents were obviously not exclusive to their tribe. I was stupid for ever thinking that was the case. And this is where who the ever said that the left is incapable of stupidity and cruelty? That's your
stupid assumption.
Right.
And liberals are stupid a lot of the time too. Everyone's stupid.
Right. No, we're not.
Whoever said that we're not immune from problems? That's just the dumbest thing. Why did you assume that? I don't even believe that you assume that, because the entirety of your discourse, the entirety of the Young Turks has included criticizing the left wing, including especially Biden people. So this is such bullshit that you ever thought that people that supported the anti-Trump movement were free from all sin. That's just a lie.
here's what the only thing you have to do in that spot is just go, all that crazy over there, I disavow. That's it.
Right.
That's it. You can maintain all of your like left-leaning sort of proclivities or whatever.
That doesn't mean that everyone on the left thinks or behaves in the way they're again just acknowledging.
So it's a small group.
Yeah, the small group of lunatics do. Far from it, but it does mean that there are factions and flaws on both sides of the aisle, and no one has a monopoly on truth. Hang on, everyone, clap, goddamn!
Oh my God! How long did this take you to write, Anna? You must have really thought about it. No one has a monopoly on truth.
Well, because the two words "both sides" wouldn't justify a Substack, so you gotta.
I just can't believe we have. This is
no
so insane.
Anna?
Like, hold on. Like, she's talking. Guys, I have been one of Anna's strongest defenders. TYT in general. Okay. Obviously, I hadn't read this until just now. We're reading it together for the first time.
Take it all back.
Insane. Basically, look what she's saying, guys. What she's saying is, well, a small group of lunatic leftists criticized me for my story about getting sexually assaulted by this homeless person. And so now I'm equating a small group of leftists to like the whole Republican Party that seems to not believe that climate change is real, doesn't believe Trump lost the election, stole Supreme Court justices, led to permanent immunity for presidents. I mean, like, argued in front of the Supreme Court that they concocted that, the state legislature should be able to decide whatever they want on presidential elections. Like, and so but because, hey, both of these groups have some bad apples in them, I'm going to call myself an independent now. Like, what? Like, what? Anyway, okay, keep going.
Then there was this insane reaction to one of my tweets in March 2023. Now, this one I was familiar with. I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, a birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community.
By the way, we've had a whole controversy where I've had tons of conservatives admit to me that men can actually get pregnant because there are XY people who can give birth through their uteruses and have legit vaginas. And so we just have this entire discourse where we've acknowledged that men can get pregnant by their own definition used by conservatives and whatever about XY chromosomes being the thing that causes your sex to be one way or the other, to act like you're so offended if someone calls you a birthing person. Get over yourself. Jesus Christ.
All hell broke loose after I posted those words. Most friends in left-wing media didn't bother reaching out privately to discuss their disagreement with my personal preference. Instead, mainly self-described socialists took it upon themselves to profit from conflict by publicly attacking
it's all personal. Like, is there any analysis of ideas here or a political philosophy? It's all, oh my God, poor me. I was attacked by these really rude people. And then that made me think that, maybe some leftists are bad.
Hutch,
wow.
She J.K. Rowling'd herself is what's
Hutch,
happening right now.
Remind me, I think you'd probably be the one to have the lore knowledge here, but wasn't the whole birthing perfins thing reference to like legislation or medical policy?
Yes. Yes. It was like, if you're crafting legal language for access to reproductive care, is it more accurate to say pregnant person or birthing person or woman? Now, if you turn your brain off temporarily, it might make sense to say woman, because aren't women the people who get pregnant, right? But if we're including these sort of rare circumstances like Pisco's talking about, or intersex people, or obviously if we're including transgender men and we feel like affirming a trans man's status as a man is important, it might make sense to just use the sort of mechanical medical term. And even if you disagree with that, logic, can we just agree that it's just not that big of a deal? Anna,
I just want to ask her, like, how many people in your day-to-day life have you ever heard use these phrases? And the answer is going to be zero.
It's such a non-issue. But the thing is, it's all personal. She's like, don't call me woman. She'd probably even acknowledge that it's appropriate for other people to have like the proper labels used, right? I don't think she would not. Maybe she would not. Or maybe she's going to go full turf. Just don't call me a birthing person, because it's all about you. And that's what this entire article is about. Just about you and your journey, everything that matters to you and all the bad experiences you've had.
A smaller leftist YouTube show put out 5 separate videos skewering me about the tweet, and I believe that's a Vanguard, as a matter of fact, while conveniently erasing the advocacy I'd done on behalf of the trans community throughout my career. They even went as far as drawing a link between my tweet and trans, which sadly wasn't the most unhinged outcome of the debacle. TYT's volunteer YouTube chat moderators quit over the tweet, and someone reported me to Human Resources. Non-air.
Jesus. Get a new job. I don't know what to say. Yes, you have some crazy leftists. Oftentimes we are fighting against them. We're like, yeah.
What is so funny, Hutch?
Oh, it's just amazing just to hearing like the behind this. That's just the least surprising Young Turk story you could have ever.
An on-air trans contributor even resigned from the company after being urged by online mobs and leftist shows to do so. Curious that not one of these shows hired her after she took their advice. I never apologized for the tweet, and I never will. That whole experience forced me to come to terms with the intolerance on the left, and it allowed me to publicly reject the ideological shackles that kept my world small and less informed.
Today, Dave Rubin on aisle 3. Dave Rubin on aisle 3.
And Dave Rubin used to work for TYT, right?
Yeah, weird. And Anna Kasparian used to like excoriate Dave Rubin. The intolerant to left, progressive left. What are we going to hear next?
Today, I'm less certain and more curious than I was 4 years ago. I've made humiliating mistakes while covering political news because I was previously unwilling to consider or understand the perspective of Americans who vote differently from me.
That's on you. That's on you.
What to expect from Unaligned. I'm hungry for dialogue, a space for in-depth analysis and a judgment-free zone. That's what I plan to do here. Every week, I'll provide subscribers. The point of this new project is the pursuit of intellectual freedom and open-mindedness. I want to nurture curiosity without fear of offending the sensibility of loyal partisans. I reject arguments about the evils of platforming people who are considered too naughty to converse with. I want to facilitate dialogue. I don't even know what my political identity or label is, and I'm not even sure I want to be pigeonholed. This is my effort in pursuing extreme honesty and humility in the quest for common ground and truth without the constraints of a tribal identity.
No, both though. She is going to make so much money doing this. I'm not even kidding.
Good for her. Listen, I'm all in favor of you talking to other people who disagree with you and you platforming certain individuals that you might really disagree with. I think within reason. I don't know. Like oftentimes people have problems with like, I don't know, Nick Fuentes being platformed, that kind of stuff. Are you going to go that far? Are you going to platform Nick Fuentes? Are you going to platform like literal genocide people? So, query to the extent to which this newfound tolerance is going to, manifest itself in Anna's projects. But beyond that, great. You have this, talk to other people. Nothing was stopping you from doing that before. Left-wing people who support the Biden administration have these challenging conversations all the time.
I mean, I don't know. The frustrating part for me is that it's obviously she's drawing something of a moral equivalence between the left and the right, which I just don't think is very legitimate. Certainly not in our contemporary politics, where the left is basically Democrats and like misaligned leftists, and then the right is basically Republicans and maybe some libertarians as well, right? These are just very fundamentally, morally speaking, like they're just very different groups of people, right? And I obviously have a very strong perspective one way or the other, but that doesn't stop people, that doesn't stop me or people like us basically from talking to people like Rob Knorr, Adam and Stitch, all these other different conservatives.
Counterpoints.
To,
I
like
love it.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Jesus. I can't
Counterpoints drops the N-word, casually, and he's considered one of the good. He's considered one of the good conservatives,
average
right?
conservative.
Yeah,
but obviously we've each of us combined has have hours and hours and hours and hours of conversations with people that we disagree with. Some of those people have probably changed our opinions, perhaps transformatively in the course of conversation. Certainly, I've had experiences like that, and I've been open talking about those things. But again, to equate the two sides, morally speaking, basically just because you had an experience where an admittedly small group of leftists really radically disagreed with you, join the club. Like anybody who's on the left or, moderately on the right has the same experience, but we don't equate the two sides morally. We don't change our perspective on things. Yeah.
Right. I have never changed my mind about like a policy preference because somebody treated me a certain way. I have changed my mind on certain things because I heard good arguments. I would never like abandon my like liberal principles because like a liberal treated me poorly one time. That
You know
just
what's
means that
funny
you have
about that?
really flimsy underpinnings
You
to
know,
begin with.
I don't know if anybody else adopts this position, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like I certainly don't go into controversial waters the way that a lot of other commentators do. And I try to be circumspect about that. You know, I certainly will say passionate things about politics, to be sure. But I've been, even I've gotten my fair share of pushback in my YouTube comments section and in emails and on Twitter and stuff like that. And my position is that if somebody to the left of me criticizes me or lashes out at me, even in the most vicious ways, and it's happened a time or two, not only like Hutch, like you say, not only would that not drive me away, but I am actually determined, just almost out of spite, to be even more of an ally. Like, you're not going to get rid of me. I will continue to be an ally to the progressive left, even if the progressive left hates my guts because they think when it comes to, domestic partisan electoral politics, I'm too willing to compromise and, cheerlead the Democratic Party. Because that's usually what it is. It's like, Jessiah, you're not on the left. How dare you? You're willing to back the Democrats. And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to continue to be an ally of you, whether you like it or not, even if it involves, voting for Democrats. And so to me, I would almost like run in the opposite direction. Instead of like running away from the left, it's like I would almost want to annoy them further by saying, nope, you're not going to drive me away. You're not going to scare me away. But this is just ridiculous. The reason I brought this up is just because in my watching of the Young Turks recently, and I say recently, I mean over the past year, I have seen multiple instances of Anna indulging in a false equivalence that even Cenk Uygur, who is very quick to criticize the Democratic Party, is visibly concerned by. And John, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, John Iadarola. They recently clashed over Nancy Mace. Anna Kasparian clutched her pearls and said, how could people say what Nancy Mace deliberately, misspeaking the vice president's name is racist? I mean, she was mad. They actually got into an argument. John was very uncomfortable with it. But the reason that we know that Nancy Mace is being a bigot is because she has been told, like, hey, it's pronounced Kamala Harris. And she said on CNN, I'll call her whatever the hell I want her to. I'll say Kamala, right? And
so rich coming from someone who's like butthurt about birthing person. Someone called her a birthing person, and she's crying on Twitter. I'll never apologize to Dave. Leftist, being leftist. And you're like, no, I'll call Kamala whatever I want, and no one can tell me. Like, give me a.
Nancy Mace was the one to say that, and Anna was defending it, right? But also, like, even for example, when Democrats in the House a couple of months ago proposed legislation to rename a federal penitentiary in Florida after Trump, in response to Republicans proposing a bill to rename Dulles Airport and I think the Gulf of Mexico after Trump, she was pissed and she bitched more at Democrats than Republicans. And Cenk was like, well, they only did it in response. And she's like, it doesn't matter. They should be using their time and their effort to deliver for the American people, which would make so much sense. I would totally agree with her if Democrats were in the majority in the House.
I want to respond to one of my commentators, Debaser, specifically. So, number one, Anna Kasparian has never been impressive, and it tells in her prose. She's not a great writer. She's not a great thinker. She's not a great commentator. She has never presented herself as an ally a steadfast ally of the Democrat Party or the resistance to Trump ever. She's equivocated, constantly giving, both equivocated and giving false equivalences. This paper, what's left unsaid is the insane movement on the right. And then many of the people who I guess she's going to platform now are completely degenerate MAGA people who, fine, I love engaging with those people, but stop pretending that there's some like big wellspring of very interesting thought on the MAGA right that you want to cater to. That's number one. Number two is the pretense that she is going to radically change her views, or that the Democrats or people who are like anti-Trump, equating the anti-Trump movement to the leftist identity politician people who like criticized her. It's all a big conflation. It's poorly written. It's clearly extremely personal, and it's small-minded. You should think bigger than like what you personally affected you and the kind of, I don't know, the interpersonal interactions you've had with like your HR. That should be what's guiding your discourse, like your ideas, your thoughts about what makes like a healthier community, not whether or not I'm sorry to say, like a homeless person accosted you and sexually assaulted you. That should not be what's governing your ideas, concepts about political discourse. It just shouldn't.
I think it's a testament to how much time you spend in right-wing circles that you like to call it the Democrat Party.
Oh, do I say? Yeah, sorry. Because I'm in this. I watch Fox News. I listen to all the MAGA commentators. I do my best to stay apprised and to have engagement with the right wing all the time. That option was always available to you, Anna. The fact that you think that you were being like closed off or people were not listening to you because they didn't let you engage with people, that's just totally false. And by the way, the Young Turks does that. Cenk Uygur absolutely engaged with the other side.
They talk to Charlie Kirk all the time.
You guys are
face to face at the DNC.
You guys are always connecting with right-wing people, disagreeing with them, interacting with their news. So my impression of the Young Turks has never been this hermetically sealed news organization that is just an echo chamber. Or they have a view. Certainly, they have certainly a view, a worldview.
Because Pisco, what she's saying, it feels like what she's saying is that she doesn't feel like the left is open for conversation, that she feels like she has disagreed with some parts of it. And her rhetoric has spoken to this in many of her videos where she says, man, it just feels like you disagree with the leftists on 1% of things and all of a sudden they're ready to crucify you. There's obviously some portion of leftists who are like that. But again, even she admits it's a small group of people. Look, take Ro Khanna as an example. Ro Khanna will go on TYT, get screamed at for 15 minutes in a row. 6 weeks later, he's right back on TYT. Like there's a load of people that are on the left of the center spectrum who are perfectly reasonable. There are people who are radically further to the left than people on TYT, people on this show, who are perfectly willing to sit down, have a casual conversation, explain their viewpoints, not engage in this sort of toxic debate bro mindset. It's just this is like, I think the summary, it sounds like, of our foundational criticism is why, she's a big figure. Obviously, it's not like when we say small group, I'm sure she gets a nominally large amount of DMs or mean YouTube comments or emails or whatever it is. But if she intellectually recognizes that this is a very small minority of people on the left, then of course it shouldn't change fundamentally her view of the left, right? That doesn't follow. That doesn't make any sense.
The one final thing I want to say about this is it implies when she says, I felt like I couldn't criticize the left, it implies that she was kind of being a little deceptive in her coverage during that time, that she was holding back actual criticism she had. And if that's the case, I think that's shameful. And I honestly think that there's no excuse for it because TYT always seems like a platform where you could criticize the corporate left. And that always has seemed to be their intention. And so to the extent that she felt like she's been holding back, that's on her, not on anyone else who's anti-Trump.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely track her journey. Maybe it won't go the way we think it is, but just wanted to share that with you. Folks, I appreciate it. Please be sure to like and subscribe everyone's Twitch and YouTube and go on Twitter, and appreciate it. And we'll see you next Wednesday for another episode of Live and Learn.